Hello and welcome to Kettle and Bones, where we make really delicious, really healthy food. And you can too. In this episode, we're making a universally beloved French entree item that has found its place on the breakfast and brunch tables throughout much of the rest of the world, but it makes a filling, protein-rich meal any time of the day. Of course, our version is an easy, low-carb, keto-compliant preparation. We're making almond flour quiche. Let's get cooking. Quiche is one of those rich, indulgent dishes that is already almost low-carb until you get down to the crust. Quiche is essentially an open-faced egg pie, typically made inside a rich, buttery wheat flour pie crust. Our quiche will be riding high atop a pie crust that is based on almond flour, coconut flour, and flax seeds instead of wheat. We're using roughly equal parts of each. We'll also be adding a rounded bit of baking powder, a heaping smidge of psyllium husk powder, and a whopping great globule of butter. Into a large mixing bowl go all of these ingredients, followed by a little shake of salt. Next, we're adding 2 whole eggs. These will help to add some moisture and help to hold things together. Using a fork, let's start to mix this all together. I want to break up the eggs a bit, and I'm also going to start chopping and smushing the butter into smaller chunks. It's okay if the butter stays a little chunky, don't worry about getting this mixture entirely smooth, but we want small enough chunks that we end up with the butter evenly distributed throughout this dough that we're making. It's going to be a fairly dry, grainy mixture at this point, and you may be wondering, how am I going to turn this into something that can be formed into a pie crust? This is how. We're going to start streaming in small splooshes of water a little bit at a time. You'll notice that the mixture is now getting clumpy and a little tackier as the water starts to activate the psyllium husk powder. Remember when we made our seed crisp bread crackers? Remember how in that recipe we were going for the consistency of coarse wet sand? Today, we want the consistency of damp mud. This is looking close, so let's get our hands in there. Yep, this is damp mud, all right. Getting hungry? You should be able to form it into a ball that is damp enough to hold its shape and doesn't crack and break apart under its own weight. Now, it's time to start forming our crust. We can make this in a pie plate or pan. Today I'm going with good old reliable cast iron. You just can't beat it. Add a little oil to the pan to prevent sticking. And we're also going to need a little extra oil on the side. Spread the oil around the pan with your bare hands, you barbarian, and then place about half the ball of dough in the center. Now, using lightly oiled fingertips to gently smush the dough into place, spread the dough evenly across the bottom of your pan. This requires just a light fingertip massage type motion. Now, take the second half of the dough ball and as evenly and equitably as possible, line the edges of the pan with pieces that we're now going to smush against the sides of the pan, forming the edge of our crust. This is basically the same way that you used to make pie in kindergarten, except that the Play-Doh we're using today tastes way, way better. By the way, if we used a muffin or cupcake pan to form our dough, we can get little individual sized quiches that, like all miniature foods, are just more fun. Give that a try if you like. When you have the dough nicely molded into the shape of your pan, it's ready to go in the oven to pre-bake. I'll be using my trusty, well-seasoned toaster oven today, and I know that my quiche crust will be relatively close to the heating element in the oven. I know from experience that I can't push this past about 325 degrees Fahrenheit or 163 degrees Celsius without it burning. Almond flour and coconut flour will burn at much lower temperatures than wheat flour. So it's 325 Fahrenheit or 163 Celsius for about 20 minutes. Having said that, every oven is different, so make sure you keep an eye on yours. You can always cook it longer, but you just can't unburn it. While your crust is pre-baking comfortably, we're going to work on a few elements of our filling. In a dry, non-stick pan over medium to medium-low heat, I'm toasting freshly ground black pepper and dried thyme. If you are not in the habit of occasionally dry roasting your spices like this, you are in for a wondrously aromatic experience. It's basically like if potpourri was delicious. Yeah. Once your kitchen is filled with beautiful floral, herby aromas, let's add a little olive oil and some chopped shallots that were waiting patiently off camera. The flavor of the shallots is a bit milder and more nuanced than other varieties of onion, so this is a good choice, especially if this quiche is destined for breakfast, where a harsher onion flavor may not be so welcome. Next, you knew this was coming, some finely chopped garlic. We're going to let these ingredients continue to sweat off a bit of their moisture. While that's happening, let's prep our next ingredient. Bacon! This is a great, high-quality, uncured bacon. Ham or sausage would work here too. Could be chicken sausage if you're not grooving on pork today. How small should you cut the meat? Well, I want this in smallish pieces, but not minced too finely. I want it small enough so that I can get a few bacon bits in a forkful of quiche, but I want it big enough to know that it's there. Does that help? Now we're going to let the bacon cook until about halfway done, stirring everything occasionally. This is sizzling nicely. I think we're just about to half-doneness of the bacon, so let's remove that from heat and set it aside to cool off. While that's cooling, let's get our egg mixture ready. We're starting with 10 eggs. I'm not married to that number. Let's mix these up, and if we need more, we'll add more. We're going to whisk these a bit. They don't have to be completely obliterated though. As we go, we're adding a sploosh of heavy cream. Whisking, whisking, whisking. What I'm looking for here is to be able to lift the whisk up out of the mixture and not have a big piece of egg hanging off it. That's it. Now it's been about 20 minutes, so let's head over to the crust cam. This is looking good. I can tell just on sight that it is dry and holding its shape, but not completely cooked. It's definitely not burnt anywhere. Give that a few minutes to cool off. Yep, it has firmed up all over. We're ready to assemble our quiche. Our bottom layer is going to be our spectacularly aromatic bacon mixture. Spread that around evenly to coat the bottom of the crust. Next, we're adding our beaten eggs. Just pour them right in there. Now we're adding a generous pile of shredded cheese. I'm going with a nice gouda cheese, which some of you may know as gouda. Gouda is a low-moisture Dutch cheese with a mild flavor that melts especially smoothly and creamily, and it pairs exceptionally well with eggs. Say it with me now. Gouda. Let's just make sure this is evenly spread across and within the eggy layer of the quiche. Now we're going to add another equally exciting type of cheese. We're adding Chevre. This is a soft, creamy French cheese made from goat's milk that has a sharp, salty, almost tangy flavor. This will be fantastic as a counterpoint to the creamy smoothness of the gouda. And that is it for our interior ingredients. And I'm looking at the crust, and I can tell we can totally fit some more eggs in there. I don't want the crust filled to the absolute brim. This is going to rise a little as it cooks, but I want the quiche to be full. 4 more beaten eggs should do it. And 1 more little sploosh of cream in there. If you are an especially shrewd and observant viewer, by now you may have also noticed I didn't add any salt to the interior egg mixture of our quiche. The reason is this: I think flavor-wise we're going to be pretty good already. When I made the crust, I used salted butter, and I added a shake of salt. And the filling is getting some saltiness from both the bacon and the chèvre. So rather than risk overdoing it with the salt, because once it's in there you just can't take it back, I'm going to let it be, and if it needs a little something at the end, I'll use a nice finishing salt, probably coarse flakes of sea salt or kosher salt. That will add not only saltiness, but a nice crunch as well. We'll worry about that later though. Now, we've got the oven back to 325 Fahrenheit, 163 Celsius. Remember, we have to respect the almond flour. And this is going in for about 30 to 40 minutes. Let's check it after about 25 and see how it's looking. You might almost think this looks ready, except, see? The jiggle test tells us it's not cooked in the middle. The crust is looking great though, getting a nice golden brown glow. Let's give it a bit more time. How about now? Better, but still a little liquidy jiggle in the middle, not quite yet. About 5 minutes later. Oh, see that? That's it. Let's get it out of there. Eggs, as you may know, will keep cooking for a little while after you remove them from the heat. And these eggs are sitting in a hot cast iron pan, so we need to get them out of the oven as soon as the top no longer jiggles. This will need to rest, cool, and solidify for a while, probably at least 30 minutes, depending on the pan you cooked it in. Tell you what, I think I want to serve this with a nice green salad on the side. While we wait for the quiche to cool, let's make a simple lemony vinaigrette dressing. Olive oil, white wine vinegar, freshly ground black pepper, a few pinches of salt, a squeeze of lemon, and several vigorous shakes. Okay, we've waited 30 minutes. Our quiche is now slightly warm but mostly cooled and should be ready to slice. You may be thinking, but I wanted to eat it hot. I don't like cold eggs. Here's the thing. If you walk into a breakfast cafe in Paris and you point to the quiche Lorraine in the display case and say in your most practiced, accented French, "Un morceau de quiche, s'il vous plaît," they will take your slice of quiche, they will put it straight into the oven, because quiche is just one of those dishes that is at its best the second time around. For that reason, this is a great dish to make the night before, store it in the fridge, and then reheat one slice at a time on an oven-safe plate. In the oven though, the oven. Don't you dare put that beautiful quiche in the microwave. Look at that. The egg is cooked through, but it's still moist and tender. The distribution of bacon looks great. I can see pockets of creamy melted Chevre beneath a mildly crispy top layer. The crust is crusty and flaky. It's a gorgeous, deep, toasted brown and has an amazing nutty, seedy aroma. The only thing better would be if there was a salad in the foreground. Oh. Maintenant, c'est parfait. Oh wait, let me get some scallions on there. Okay, maintenant, c'est parfait. And there you have it. A buttery seed crust brimming with savory bacon, creamy cheeses, and tender, fluffy egg, containing no wheat and almost no carbohydrates. I don't really think much else needs to be said, except that I sincerely hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Stay with Kettle and Bones for many more filling, tasty, and nutritious entrees. But for now, just enjoy your almond flour quiche.